Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. I'm greeting you and welcoming you to our show. Now tell us. We invite people to come and tell us good stories, or they come and educate us on one thing or the other. And always we have great guests. And so today it's no exception. We have a great guest with us who is known as Robert Kennedy III. Hello, Robert.
Hey there, Anthony. Listen, do me a favor. I'm a speaker, man, so I like to come in with an entrance. So do me a favor. Just say, ladies and gentlemen, introducing Robert Kennedy III.
Okay, here we go again. Ladies and gentlemen, you are tuned to Now Tell Us. And right here with us, we are welcoming a great public speaker, Robert Kennedy III. Welcome to the show, Robert.
Yeah, that's how we enter the stage, my friend.
Beautiful, beautiful. Welcome. Now take the mic.
Yes, sir. Yes. How you doing
Yes,
today?
I'm doing fine. How about you?
Fantastic, fantastic, spectacular.
Yeah, it's good to have a public speaker because he's gonna tell us of how to do it. So, for the intro, now Robert Kennedy the Third is a leadership communication expert, international keynote speaker, corporate trainer, and best-selling author. So, if
Mhm.
you're there and you'd like to find your voice and own your story, because that's the topic of today's episode, we've got the right person right before us. And so let's go in and find out who's here on the stage. Now, please tell us, give us an intro. I've given you a brief introduction, and I think I started at the top. Let's start somewhere from below. Or are you the one who says we start at the end in mind, with the end
Yeah,
in mind?
yeah, yeah.
Okay.
So currently, I run a training company here in Maryland, and we train corporate leaders how to be able to share their story or how to help people move to action with their messages. And so we do that through sharing ideas about business storytelling. We share with people about how to confidently communicate their ideas and be expert presenters. So we do that for specifically the real estate industry. And so we've been doing that for, my goodness, maybe 4 or 5 years.
Mhm.
And then over the last 12 years or so, no, 14 years, going on 14 years, I've been a business owner for 100% in business for that long. I've had two prior businesses to that, so four businesses
Oh, and
overall.
then
But
the mic
before I went full
drops.
time,
We're gonna pick it
yeah.
up.
Okay. Are you not hearing me?
Together here we are with Robert Kennedy the third. I don't know
Yeah.
what just happened. I don't know whether it's Robert's side. Now these things are going to be experienced when you go to an
Yeah.
event, and then there's total breakdown of the equipment, and technology just
Yeah.
says this is not your day. You've got to take the mic again. Let's get it up going again. So
Oh, I don't
keep
know.
going.
Let's see what happened. Can you hear me?
Yes, I
Can you
can
hear
hear
me?
you.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
I don't know what happened. Yeah, like, okay. All right.
Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know where I left off, but I am a speaker, keynote speaker, corporate trainer, workshop facilitator, and have been doing that for the last 7 or so years. Prior to that, I had an e-learning training company where we did that for about 7 years. So I've been in business full time for about 14 years. And prior to that, I had two other companies that I started while I was a teacher in the classroom.
Oh, that's beautiful. So you were a teacher initially, and tell us about where you are, right? Or is that where you were born? Is that where you grew up? Or
No, I was actually born on the island of Jamaica, man. I left
oh,
Jamaica when I was
You're a Jamaican.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
good.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. People say yeah, man, but no, Jamaicans don't really say yeah, man, a whole lot.
Okay, we'll go with
Yeah,
yeah. Okay.
yeah, yeah.
Mhm.
So come from yard, yeah. So yeah, we I grew up in Jamaica, or I was there for about 7.5 years, and then after that, I moved to New York City, which is where I grew up in the Bronx for about 10 years before going to college. And so my dad was a pastor, preacher. So I'm the son of a preacher man. And so
Okay.
moved around a lot. I was in church all my life. And so that's kind of my background from a geographical perspective.
Hmm. And because we are talking about the mic in church, is that where you started to pick the mic from?
Well, you know what? When you're a pastor's kid,
Hmm.
sometimes you do things against your will, right? Sometimes
Okay.
you're voluntold, right? You
Hmm.
don't volunteer, you're voluntold to do some things. And so yes, I had moments where I had to speak, I had to do poetry, I had to sing, I had to preach, I had to do different things as a pastor's kid in church, man.
No, that's a good preparation, and it's good when you just grow up being groomed in the direction that you end up taking as a career. So,
Mhm.
for those of us who are listening to you, we understand that what you're talking about is not something you just picked.
No, nope. Been doing it for a long time. I mean, I wasn't necessarily a an outspoken child. I was rather shy for a lot of my
Uh-huh.
childhood. But
Hmm.
I also was I was a teacher for about 10 years, and so I've had a lot of stuff where I guess I've had a lot of practice, man.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's good. So, tell us about teaching. What did you used to teach?
I taught physics and biology. I
Whoa.
taught in I taught in the high school. I taught high school for 8 years, and I was a faculty for an online university in their biology department for 2 years.
Oh, beautiful. So then, how, at what point did you drop teaching and just, oh, no, you've not dropped teaching, you're still teaching and training. But at
Yeah.
what point did you come out of high school and start concentrating on corporate, in the corporate field? Did you just go straight away, or did you go out of a permanent job and start teaching, going to schools and gaining experience? Or tell us.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
here's the story. I was teaching in high school for 8 years, and then I transitioned to an online job.
Oh,
Some of
yeah,
that
which you talked
happened.
about. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
and some
Mm-hmm.
of that happened because of, I got married, started having kids, and the online job allowed me the flexibility to be at home because it was an
Okay.
online university, so I didn't have to travel anywhere. So I had to do that. Now, there were some things changing with the university, and then I moved my family 500 miles from the state of Massachusetts to Maryland, where we are now. And 10 days after we came from Massachusetts, I lost my job at the
Oh,
online university. And
mm-hmm.
so I had to figure out how to provide for my family. I had to figure out how to um, add some income to the pot, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so I was doing everything I could, putting out resumes, all of that, and I wasn't getting any bites. So
Mm-hmm.
I decided that I was going to do some course building, and I started to build online courses for a couple of professors and universities, and that blossomed a little bit. I started a business where we were developing e-learning online courses,
Mm-hmm.
and did that for a little while, and that business um, exploded after a while, not in a good way. I made some bad decisions, and that business went down the tubes. But before that business blew up, I
Mm-hmm.
started training. I started to be requested to do trainings on communication, on how to build courses, and then that moved into leadership training and other communication trainings. And so, we've had an organic development or transition to where we are right now.
Mm. Now, in communication, we talk about stories.
Mhm.
Please tell us, what is it about stories, and it is important that you have a story of your own.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you know what? Stories are how we communicate. We've communicated that way for a very long time, right?
Yeah.
Before we learned how to write, before there was computers, how did we transmit information? How did
Mm-hmm.
we remember things, right?
Yeah.
And I'll even go back to African culture. How did we share family secrets or family history, right? It
Mm-hmm.
was through verbal communication, and it
Sure.
was through the stories that we told about the village, about grandma, about great grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
That is how information was transferred, right?
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason that it's transferred that way, because it's memorable. It's easier for people to remember information through stories than it is for them to just give us data.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so, as a matter of fact, studies have been done, and the studies tell us that you are 22 times more likely to remember a fact if it's wrapped in a story,
Mm-hmm.
right? So
Okay.
stories have this emotional connection
Mm-hmm.
that allow us to really remember information, and stories cause us to go into our mental Rolodex to find out whether or not we experienced that thing, we want to experience that thing, or we don't want to experience that thing
Mm-hmm.
anymore. Stories are powerful, man. That's the biggest way that I recommend people to communicate. If you want people to not just remember, but move
Yeah.
to action.
Yeah. Uh-huh. And then you talk about having a signature talk or a story.
Yeah.
What is exactly that?
Well, a signature talk is a story at its very core. It's something that people know you for. It's
Mm-hmm.
a story that people identify or associate with you, no matter where you are or what you're up to, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
if they're talking about Anthony, they're saying Anthony is a motivational speaker, and here's a story that he tells all the time. He tells about the
Mm-hmm.
time where he was a child and he experienced this, and this is why he became a motivational speaker, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's how people create connection with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, if you have a business or if you have a product that you sell, why is it that you're passionate about that? Why is it
Mm-hmm.
that you decided that you're gonna uh, approach that business? Well, there's a situation, or there's a scenario, or there's an experience
Mm-hmm.
behind it, and if you're able to share that, chances are there are some people that say, "Wait a minute, I experienced that thing." Right?
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot of products that come out because somebody had something that they experienced, and they're able to sell it because the experiences connect to other people.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you. So, to those of you who are joining us right now, we are with Robert Kennedy III, and we are talking about finding your voice and owning your story. We want to
Yeah.
thank each and every one of you who are watching us, and those who get to watch us after we are through with this show. And at this point, I want to mention one, Dr. Manny Hill Foderaro. She says, always great to tune into Anthony's interviews. Wonderful guests and fascinating topics. Oh, like the one we have today. Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Mani, and everyone else out there. Please remember to share with your friends as we get more education and more inspiration like we are having today. Now, uh, you stand in front of an audience.
Mhm.
I know it's not an easy thing. I mean, you've had the experience yourself. You grew up in
Yeah.
church. You took the mic. You preached. You sang. You gave testimonies. Uh, what would you tell someone who's getting there for the first time and he has to take the mic? I have seen people faint when they are given the mic without notice. What do you tell someone like that?
Well, you know what? A lot of people feel like being on the mic or being in front of people, there's this magic potion or a magic pill that people take not to be nervous. And the
Mm-hmm.
truth, all of us are going to be nervous in some way, shape, or form. I mean, comedian Jerry Seinfeld says that at a funeral, more people would like to be in the casket than giving the eulogy, right?
Uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
So people become nervous because of a couple of things. They make up stories in their minds, right?
Yeah.
They feel like
Yeah.
people are going to criticize them. They feel like they're going to fail
Mm-hmm.
or mess up in front of everybody, and everybody's going to laugh, and they make up these things in their heads before it's even happened. And so
Mm-hmm.
when people come to me and they say, Robert, can you teach me how to speak, and can you tell me how not to be nervous? I share
Mm-hmm.
with them, our job isn't to get rid of the butterflies. It's simply to help them fly in formation, right? And so
That's good.
how do we do that? How do we do
Mm-hmm.
that? Well, that happens right here. This is the
Mm-hmm.
biggest muscle. This is the biggest advantage or barrier that
Yeah.
we've
Yeah.
crossed through. So as you begin to feel those butterflies and begin to feel the energy inside of
Mm-hmm.
you, what are you telling yourself that it is? Right?
Mm-hmm.
Are you telling
Mm-hmm.
yourself it's nerves? or are you telling yourself that it is excitement for the information that you're going to be sharing with people, or the story that you're going to be sharing with people, right? So really figuring out how to reframe your energy.
Okay. Um, you stand on stage now.
Mhm.
You've enabled the butterflies to form to fly in a beautiful formation. But
Yes.
then, how do you engage the audience so that they listen to you and they understand what you're saying, or they flow with
Yeah.
you? How do you engage them?
Well, that is, I'm glad you asked that. I'm gonna give people a cheat code right now, right? If secret, a secret of all secrets, an ancient secret that's going to make you a better storyteller.
Mhm.
A
We
lot
are
of people,
ready for secret.
yeah, a
Uh,
lot of people go on stage, and here is the typical opening. Good morning, my name is Robert, or good morning, my name is Eric, or Jane, or Maria, and I'm here today to talk to you about that.
mhm.
What do you think about that as an introduction?
um,
Yeah, I've heard it before. It's boring. It's
yeah.
average,
Um,
it's regular,
uh-huh,
right?
uh-huh.
So the goal of speaking is to connect with your audience as soon as possible,
Okay.
right? You want to be able to engage the mind of your audience as soon as possible so that they're not focused on you and whether you're going to mess up or not,
Mhm.
right? So how do you engage the mind of your audience?
Tell
Well,
us. Tell us.
scientists tell us that there is a trigger, or there is a process in our brain that you can literally use to hijack the brain of every person in the audience
Mm.
when you speak to them, right? People can't help but listen, or people can't help but engage when you do this. And here's the thing, here's the secret: ask a question.
Mm.
Oh, right. You ask a question. Here's what happens. Scientists tell us that there's a process called instinctive elaboration, which means that when you ask a question, the mind can't help but answer it.
Okay.
Right. So if I go up and instead of saying, good morning, my name is Robert, I go up and I say, what would it be like if every one of you in here had a bowl of candy in front of them? What happens? Their mind now begins to create the picture of the bowl, and they start to wonder, wait a minute, what would I feel if I had a bowl of candy in front of me? What's another
Mhm.
question that I can ask? I might say, I may not even ask a question. I may create a statement that engages their brain. I may say, imagine a world where there was no more violence. What happens? People's brains begin to create a video and the picture, and they begin to think about that world, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
What if
Mhm.
you could what if you could drive a car at 150 miles per hour or 200 kilometers per hour? Now everybody's in the car. They're sitting down there in the car, and they're behind the wheel, or they're in the passenger seat, and they're wondering, would I be fearful? Would I be, oh my gosh, or would I be just relaxed? Their minds are engaged figuring out what experience or emotion they want to connect with,
Yeah.
right? And they're
Mhm.
not focused on you at that moment. They're focused on their experience. And so for a speaker who wants to connect with the audience and immediately get the audience engaged,
Mhm.
their
Mhm.
brains. Don't
Okay.
don't give them boring information.
Mm. Okay. That's good. We like that. So, talk about body language, because some of us,
Mhm.
and why is it important? Is it really important to watch my body language?
Well, I mean, I think we all know the answer to that question, right?
Uh,
We've all experienced somebody walking into a room and they didn't say anything, but you knew whether they were in a good mood or a bad mood.
yeah.
Right? We've all experienced somebody walking in the room and the entire atmosphere changed, or there's a bunch of people in the room and everybody's laughing and everybody's having fun, and this person walks in the room and all of a sudden it feels like the room is negative.
Mm.
We've had that experience. So
Mhm.
when we're speaking to people, um, Albert Morabian did this study. He wrote this book called Silent Messages. They did this study years ago, and it said that the majority of what influences people, 55% of what influences people is visual, right? What
Okay.
you're wearing, what your body does, what your facial expressions are, all of that,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
8% of what influences people is vocal. And that means the tone. Are you loud? Are you soft? Are you speaking quickly? Are you slow? Right? Which
Mm-hmm.
means 38 and 55 is 93, which means about 7% of what really influences people is verbal, which is the
Yeah.
word
Yeah.
that you are saying.
Mm-hmm.
So that's not to say the words are not important, but the words have to match up or line up effectively with the body language. So if your body language is super low key,
Yeah. Yeah.
then now you've got to do a little bit more work verbally, right? Or you've got to do a little bit different work verbally. But if you want to have your audience engage with you on an energetic level, then your
Mm-hmm.
body language has to be energetic, right? You got to smile. You've got to have your shoulders up and your chest out, and really just coming to your audience in a way that says, "Listen, I'm passionate. I'm convicted. I understand that I've got something fantastic to tell you, fantastic to share with you, something amazing that's going to transform you and change your life,"
Mm-hmm.
right? If I
Mm-hmm.
say what I just said and I say, "Hey, I've come today to transform you and to change your life,"
Yeah. Yeah.
it's
I'll be.
very different.
Yeah.
Right? But if I
It's
want to transform lives and I want people to pay attention to that and really understand it and take it in, then my energy, my body language has to reflect that.
yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And let me ask you a question. We all have seen some very effective and very great speakers there. They attract a big crowd of people who follow them, hear what they say, and act on what they say. And
Yeah.
I'm going to use one example, and you're going to maybe give us a little analysis of why you think that is so effective on communication and achieving great results.
Yeah.
And the example I'm going to give is Obama.
Uh-huh.
Give us why. I believe he's a very great communicator, very effective. Why would do you think he's so effective and so? I mean, he has great results in whatever he's doing.
Yeah, well, I think there is connection. Even before somebody says something, there's connection. I think in the United States, particularly, where there has never been prior to him a president of color,
Mm-hmm.
there was already connection just innately, right? He would walk up, and especially from people of color, they're starting to listen already because they identify, they connect with
Mm-hmm.
him some
Mm-hmm.
level, emotionally, personally, from an identity perspective.
Yeah.
Then after that, the way that he speaks, he was very um he had a charismatic way about him, or has
Mm-hmm.
a charismatic way about him. He smiles, he's humorous. He shares stories. We can talk about the meter with which he speaks. He's kind of speaks in these chunks, and so people are able to grab information. He doesn't speak too quickly. He
Mm-hmm.
doesn't speak too slowly. The way that he spoke connected with people. And so that there were a lot of different things that um, that related to that. I mean, I can relate that or connect it to the president that came after him in the United States, Donald Trump, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
A lot of people didn't like Donald Trump and his policies and the way that he operated. But from a speaking perspective,
Mm-hmm.
um, he connected with a certain group of people, right? He
Yeah.
connected with them, and because he connected with them, when he went up to speak, he utilized some of the extreme nature of their relationship, or some of the extreme emotions that people felt, and
Mm-hmm.
that allowed people to listen to him for hours at a time. Now, I wouldn't sit and listen to Donald Trump for 3 hours.
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's just he's not my cup of tea in that way, right? But there
Okay.
that did, because he connected with them on an emotional level, even before he started to speak. And then once he started to speak, he really exploited or utilized or leveraged the emotional connection to keep their attention for hours.
Mm, that's good. So tell us now, because you are at now. Tell us,
Mhm.
um, how do I find my own voice? How do I, yes, how do I find my own voice and own my story?
Well,
Now, Anthony.
a lot of people are nervous about sharing their stories because they feel like they don't have something important to say,
Mm,
right? They're like, my life is regular. My life
mm-hmm,
is normal. My life is average. I don't have anything that people would want to listen to. So they don't share their stories because of that.
mm-hmm,
And the
mm-hmm,
truth is, we all have something that people would want to listen to because we've all, wherever we are in life, we're ahead of somebody, right? So whether you were born with both of your arms and your legs and you have your ears and your eyes and your noses, or just one nose, if you have all of the if you have all of your stuff together, what are the things that what are the challenges? What are some of the things that you've gone through? What are some similar experiences? Well, um, what about a test that you had to pass, that you had to study for?
mm-hmm,
What about the experience of getting your driver's license? What about the experience of going from one level of school to the other, right? Going from high school to college, or going from elementary to into high school. What were some of those experiences? If you're a family where you have siblings, did
mm-hmm,
you ever get into conflict with your siblings, your brother, your sister? How did you navigate that? Right?
mm-hmm,
What about your first job? What was it like to get your first job? Right? All of those are stories, and all of those are experiences that we can use to connect with people, because if I'm getting my first job, there's a kid that's 14 or 15 that hasn't gotten their first job yet,
yeah,
right? And you can share with them, "Hey, this is how I did it. This is what I did. This is how I prepared myself.
mm-hmm,
And my first 2 months, this is what happened, and this is how I got promoted, or this is what I did to get to the next level," right?
mm-hmm,
So all of those are experiences that we can share with people, and, it may not be your signature story yet, but you don't get your signature story until you start telling stories,
mm. So
right?
the secret is to start telling stories.
Yeah. Yeah,
Uh-huh.
whatever you think it whatever whether you think it's important or not, begin to share elements of your life. So here's another secret, another thing that's gonna help you become an even better storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
Think about what lesson you want to share.
Yeah.
Think about what is it that you want people to understand, know, or move to action on. Once
Mm-hmm.
you understand what you can share, or what lesson you want to share, then you can create a story or think about a story to match up or to line up with that,
Mm-hmm.
right? So if I want to teach somebody about the lesson of perseverance, I can tell them about when I was in college and I failed organic chemistry.
Mm-hmm.
This is a real story, right? I can tell them about when I was in college and I failed organic chemistry, and how I went to summer school and I failed it again, right? And then
Yeah.
I went back and I took it again, and this time I got a C, and that's how I knew that I didn't want to go to medical school.
But you
So
ended up teaching biology.
right, right, exactly,
Yeah. So
exactly,
that's
right? So it's
so.
these are stories that people can share
Yeah,
about.
they don't share. Yeah, I mean that is inspirational in itself. I mean, telling us that you got a C, you found that you're not going to medical, but you ended up still teaching biology. Like,
Yeah.
like, I failed. What failed me in high school was art. I
Mhm.
mean, I don't know why, because most of the time that I spent in class was painting and drawing. And then I come to discover that my high school marks, the art was my lowest. And that is
Right,
what prevented me from joining the campus immediate by 1 point.
right, right.
The other part of the story is that that's what became my career initially.
Mhm.
That's
Yeah,
what I got freedom from. That's where I fed my family from, art,
yeah,
even
yeah,
though I failed it in high school.
yeah. And I think one of the things that as a teacher,
Yeah.
I learned how to teach certain things to students, um, especially students that were having trouble because I had the experience of failing,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
I
Hmm.
there's some things that I can't teach you or understand that you're experiencing if I haven't gone through them myself. If I've only gotten A's or I've only been first place or succeeded at every single thing in my life,
Hmm.
I'm not as good at teaching somebody who's having a struggle or an experience because I don't know what that experience is like.
Hmm.
Right. So now I can use my failure. I can use the feelings that I felt. I can recognize the struggle in the student's eyes because I had that experience.
Okay. Yeah. And one more question. How would you take an ordinary story and make it interesting or make it extraordinary? Is it possible?
I think you can take any story and really focus on the lesson. I think the lesson inside of it, the thing that you're trying to share, is what really makes the story extraordinary. I'll give an example. I was speaking with my mastermind group a few years
Hmm.
ago, and they were asking about things that we have done that maybe other people hadn't done in that way. And I was struggling. I said, I don't know if there's anything like extraordinary that I'd done. I said, the only thing that I can think of is I taught myself to ride a bicycle at 8 years old. And they said,
Yeah.
"Yeah, tell us about that." And so I told them the story, and here's the quick story that I shared with them. I said, yeah, so I was 8 years old and I was at a friend's house and I asked them how to ride a bicycle. And my friend pointed out the window and we were looking out the window and there were some kids out there that were learning to ride, but their parents were pushing them along. And
Mm-hmm.
so this was back in the day when you can leave kids alone by themselves at 8 years old, right? We didn't have parents at home at that
That's
day.
a long time ago.
Exactly. You see the gray hair, right?
Yeah.
So I said, I gotta learn how to ride today. So we
Mhm.
went to his garage and there were two bikes. There was his bike and sister's bike. He got on his bike and he hopped off and he rode down the street. And so I had his sister's bike with the basket and the bell, ding, 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 right? And so I go onto the street and I try to ride, but I fall because I've never ridden before.
Yeah.
And so I don't know how I figured this out, but he had one of those driveways that went down underneath the house. And
Hmm.
so I figured out that I could let the bike roll down the hill without having to use the pedals, and I could learn how to balance easier that way. So
Okay.
I did that for a little while and I kept doing it. I did it for about 30 minutes and, got down to the driveway, got down into the garage under the house, started to turn, etc. And after a little while, I started to add the pedals and started to gain my balance that way. So I took the bicycle out onto the street after about 30 minutes.
Hmm.
Started to try to ride and I was a little bit wobbly, but I was determined to ride for more than just a few feet at a time. So at the end of the street, there was this hill. So I took the bicycle and I pushed it to the end of the hill, to the end of the street, and I positioned myself at the top of the hill and I let
Hmm.
the bike start to move. And this bicycle started to take off, and I put my feet on the pedals, and I start to ride down this hill. And I'm going down the hill, and the bike is picking up speed, and the pedals start to spin. And after a while, my feet fly off pedals because they're going too fast for me to handle at that point.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
still going down the hill, but there's an intersection at the bottom of this hill, and this
Hmm.
bike is coming towards the intersection, and I'm flying closer. And I remember that there's one thing that I forgot to teach myself in the driveway: brake.
Breaking.
How to hit the brakes, right? I didn't teach myself that. So I'm getting closer to this intersection and closer and closer. And just before I get to the intersection, I notice that there is this lawn on my left. So I take the bike and I turn it and I throw it onto the lawn. I swing it and I fly off the bicycle and I go through the grass and there's mud and dirt on my face. And I come to a stop. And as I
Hmm.
come to a stop, I look up at the top of the hill and I see my friend and he's looking down at the hill, at the bottom of the hill. He's like, "Oh my gosh," his face is in shock. But I stand up and I raise my hands like in triumph and victory because I had ridden my bike down the
It's not a matter of the mud on the face. No, it's the
no,
victory
no.
that I made.
I rode my bike. So I told my mastermind group the story, and they were like, "Why haven't you told us this story before?" I said,
Uh-huh.
I was just learning how to ride my bike." And they said, "No, there's so many lessons inside of that. There's the lesson of not listening to your friend when he told you only parents can teach you, right?
Yeah, yeah.
There's a lesson of figuring out that you can go down the driveway and learn how to balance on your own, right? There's the lesson of trying it out, falling, and then not giving up and deciding to go to the hill. There's the lesson of how when we go down, sometimes we're going down a hill in life and we feel out of control, right? How many
Mhm.
people, if I talk to business owners, I say, how many of you have ever had this project on your plate and you just feel like it's a runaway train? It's like it's out of control and you don't know what to do. And oh, by the way, there's an intersection coming up down at the bottom, and you're about to crash, and
Mhm.
you're feeling like this thing is about to be the worst thing ever. Right? They said that that's a lesson. They say you get down to the bottom of the hill, you crash into the lawn, and instead of feeling like you had the worst experience ever, you raised your hands in victory because you chose to focus on the positive. You chose to focus on something amazing that happened, something that you'd never done before,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
There's so many lessons inside of that story, and here you are thinking that is just this. You just learned how to ride 8 years old.
That's beautiful. So, thank you very much for sharing all these, Robert. We appreciate. And we have one other Facebook user who's saying, "I agree with Kennedy that storytelling is a teaching where we develop interests."
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that. And all the others who are watching us, we really appreciate you. And we thank Robert for sharing these interesting perspectives about
Mm.
storytelling and owning our voice. And I have a question. I'm a public speaker, and anyone else there who's watching is a public speaker. And then he stands up and he has notes on his hands. What's your take on that? That I have to speak and read what, say what? What's your take on that?
I mean, there are a lot of different types of speakers. I don't um, criticize anybody for checking their notes. As I said, I grew up in church, and there are pastors that speak by reading from a manuscript.
Yeah, yeah.
That's the way that they do it, and there's some phenomenal speakers that
Hmm.
read from their notes or read from a manuscript. I mean, I would just say that if you are reading from notes, then pay attention to some of the other skills that you can use to engage with your audience. Make sure that your eye contact is phenomenal. Make sure that you connect with people maybe through proximity. All right. You
Hmm.
can connect with people by getting closer to them in some ways. Make sure that you connect with people by utilizing their names. If you're a keynoter and you want to make a connection with people, get to the engagement early. Connect with a few people in the audience before you begin to speak. Find out their names, find out what they're doing, find out what experiences they're having, and then reference those while you are speaking. Because if I'm speaking or if I'm sitting in the audience and Anthony says, "Yeah, Robert said this to me," what's Robert going to do? If I was on my phone, I'm going to look up and I'm
Yeah,
going to connect
yeah.
with you, right?
Mhm,
Because you
mhm,
call my name, right? Dale
mhm,
Carnegie said the sweetest sound to every person in any language is the sound of their own name,
mm. That's
right?
yeah,
So, but using notes is not the end of the world.
yeah.
I recommend getting to a place where you can really begin to own the story and just share it without having to refer to notes all the time, because there's a freedom that
Mm,
comes with
mm.
that. But if you have to use notes, use them so that you can not ramble and follow your structure and say what you need to say and get off the stage.
Well, thank you, thank you. So, for those of you who are joining us right now, you're not late, but you found us talking to Robert Kennedy, who is a leadership communication expert and is an international keynote speaker, corporate trainer, and best-selling author. Now, I ask, since you are a corporate trainer, do you
Mm.
also train individuals? Like I say, I come to you that I want to be a great public speaker. I'm not in any organization. I'm just myself. Do you do that?
I do that from time to time. I used to do it a lot more. I do it
Mhm.
a bit less now, but I still do it with individuals that are ready and willing to invest a certain amount of time and effort in order to do it. I'm not somebody who you would come and say, "Hey, can you do one session with me?" No, we're not going to see real results that way.
Uh-huh. Yeah,
We've
sure.
got to do a few, and here's the structure of it. Here's the time. Here's your personal investment. Here's how that works. And so, yeah, I do work with people from time to time in that way.
And that's wonderful. Yes, results don't come in a day. I mean, it's going to take some time, some practice, and until you get it. Now, how can people reach you if they want to be in contact with you?
I am really easy to find. I'm Robert Kennedy 3 on all social media, the number 3. You can go to robertkennedy3.com to find me. You can search Robert Kennedy 3 on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. You can find me there. We're just getting on TikTok. Some dude stole Robert Kennedy 3 on TikTok. He's not even using it. So I'm a real Robert Kennedy 3 on TikTok. How about that?
Okay, I'll actually connect with you. I'm on TikTok on the other side, so I'll connect with you on TikTok. I love TikTok and all the other handles. So for those who are listening, go to www.robertkennedy3.com, and from there you can find all the other routes to connect with Robert. And we really appreciate your presence here, Robert. Thank you very much for taking your time to come and tell us how to find our voice and own our story. So we are almost coming to the end of the show, but before we go, it's good that you leave us with a few words that we can always remember. What are they?
Yeah. Well, listen, I share this at the end of any podcast or some of the podcasts I'm on. A lot of the reason why people don't share their story is because they're scared or they're nervous or they have a lot of fear. But here's what I say to people. Everything that happened to you happens to you in life is your stuff. Your stuff is your story, and your story deserves a stage. So get on out there and tell it. It's going to make a difference for somebody.
Would like to hear that again, please. Every
Everything that happens to you in life is your stuff. Your stuff is your story, and your story deserves a stage.
Oh, thank you very much, Robert. We really appreciate you, and we wish
Yeah,
you great story as you go. I mean, a great success as you go and teach others to find their own voice and their story. We appreciate
love
it.
it.
And those who
Thank you,
are
Anthony.
those who get to listen after we are through, please follow up with Robert for much more on his website, as he's told us. The link is on the comments, and yeah, that's a great time. And thank you for telling us everything that we needed to hear, Robert. Thank you.
Love it.
So, yeah, I'm your host, Anthony Morore, and together with Kennedy, we are saying bye for now. Bye bye.
Bye bye.